What's up, guys? I am Caleb Giddings,
I'm Keith Finch.
I'm Jack.
and all three of us are back for the first time in, I think, about a month. We've been all over the place. Jack's X-Wing is up and running again. Keith
Let's
is.
take it to the shop. Good old X-Wing muffler, man.
So did somebody crawl under it and pull the catalytic converter off of it or something? That's why.
No, I don't. I no longer live in Detroit. The thing that don't happen.
Oh my goodness. Before we get started with this week's episode, we'd like to thank our sponsors for being awesome as always. And if you're watching the audio version of this, Christ alive, if you're watching the YouTube,
stay on target.
if you're watching the YouTube version of this, and I remember to do it, you're going to watch a little banner right now. There we go. Anyway, so before we get started with this week's topic, Jack's X-Wing reminded me of something, and apparently people aren't watching Andor, and I don't understand why, because that show goes so hard.
Okay, I haven't watched it, but I've got I want it all to be out. I'm tired of doing episodic stuff.
Okay, that's fair.
I'm waiting on that as well. But I've heard enough good things about Andor that I'm really looking forward to the final drop. That way I can just binge it in a day and enjoy it.
You've got another 6 weeks. It's a 12-episode season.
What? Good. Stop doing these 6-episode things. That doesn't work for me.
Yes.
Yeah, the 5, 6, 8 episode drop is so annoying. Like, oh, you're going to entertain me for a month with this? Like, just put it out there. Come on. I know it's dumb.
I'm tired of episodic stuff, except for big caveat. I fell off the wagon and started watching House of the Dragon. It's not as good as Game of Thrones, but it scratches that itch. It's the methadone to the Game of Thrones heroin.
I know that this won't be popular.
It's pretty solid. I'm not caught up yet, but it's pretty solid.
I know this won't be popular with some of our listener base because they're reactionary and dumb. But I really enjoyed the Rings of Power. I thought it was well written. It was paced pretty slow, but when you think about the fact that Amazon bought 5 seasons, they're doing 5 seasons. Amazon was like, we got space rocket dick money. We're doing 5 seasons of this show. I really enjoyed it, and part of why I enjoyed it.
I'll play the opposite card. I hate that show with a passion.
So
I think it's stupidly written.
Part of why I enjoyed it is I enjoyed the fact that I can watch a high fantasy show and have my toddler in the room at the same time without possibly being committing a crime, because I'm
totally
not sure
fair.
Him seeing parts of House of the Dragon is actually legal.
There's a certain audience for that their high fantasy show.
So anyway, what was interesting to me about House of the Dragon and Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon and Rings of Power, is how the Rings of Power's marketing absolutely failed. Like, their marketing was terrible for the show, and that's why today we're talking about gun industry marketing, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I may not call the episode that, but if I did, then pretend I did all of that on purpose. But so for a little background, Keith and Jack and I have all do work in the marketing side of the firearms industry. And
you make money off of the guns. No!
Oh, no!
And
we don't just sit in front of the camera for funsies alone.
I do want to say that Gunday Brunch is 100% sponsored by gun companies that we will shill for. And in fact, whoever pays for this, I'm going to tell you their product's the best.
I should probably talk to your sponsorship guy about this and just make the show even more incestuous.
I meant to talk to you about that so that me and Keith can get a percentage off of us selling it to you.
Right?
Yeah. I'm into this idea. I love everything about this, guys. So
we'll kick back a percentage of our percentage to your percentage. So it just keeps rolling.
I forget who it was that said this, but it was a few years ago.
There's an episode of Always Sunny about this, I feel.
Oh, yeah. A few years ago, someone said that the gun industry is basically just everybody's side hustle supporting each other's side hustles over and over again into infinity.
So
And I'm like, you're not. And it because that scales up to the macro level. Like when I'm like, all right, I'm looking at ad packages. Well, who are the homies? Let's make sure we're taking care of the homies first.
Yep. Oh, 100%.
You always take care of the homies first.
I won't go into details, but I've had a buddy in this industry. He's been one of my longest friends in the industry. And I have done little side deals for him. I've helped out where I could. And he just signed a very lucrative contract with us, and I'm going to make a boatload. Like, it's good to work with the buddies. That's all I'm saying, guys. It doesn't.
You take care of your people, they take care of you.
Right.
I'm continuing until you're like, where did all these dollars come from? What the fuck?
Why is there an airplane full of money in my yard? Oh, that's the drugs. Never mind. But anyway, but like gun industry marketing has always been interesting, right? Because we are in a segment where some of the levers of traditional marketing aren't really available to us, right? Like you're never going to see a Daniel Defense ad during the Super Bowl, but that was a clever marketing stunt on Daniel Defense's part when they were like, we're going to do a Super Bowl ad and then we're going to get all this press off of when it 100% inevitably gets rejected, which I thought was clever because they knew they weren't going to get a spot. But
it was a well done ad. They crafted a very good ad so that it would circulate by being rejected. Excellent idea.
Yeah. So, and that's kind of the fun thing is like in the gun industry, and we've referenced a little bit of the, bananas side of this in episode 40, Keep Them Gun Legs Running, where we talked about EAA and their absolutely unhinged marketing, which in its own way is brilliant because people still talk about it. We talk about the gun legs and some of the other crazy things that have come out of there. But today we're going to go around, we're going to talk about some of the good stuff and some of the bad stuff, some of the weird stuff, and starting with like marketing that absolutely hit and where it just like you watch it and it worked, or you read it and it works, or it's like you're flipping through a magazine and you go, God dog, that's good. Or in some cases, marketing that you didn't even realize was marketing until you had like your wallet in your hand and you're like, why am I
how
marketing to?
I ordered what? Hold on.
So for me,
where should we start with that?
Oh, I'll go with marketing that hit that I didn't realize I was being marketed to was 100 gajillion years ago. IDPA used to have this match called the Indoor National Championships, right? Sponsored by Smith & Wesson. Okay. And it was held at the Smith & Wesson headquarters at their old range, which they no longer have. It's a shame. It was a cool range, very cool match. There was a year where one of the stages was sponsored by Crimson Trace, and you shot this stage in low light and you used a pickup gun that had a laser on it to start. And this was very early on in my career and I wasn't that savvy. And I grabbed this gun and I go, oh my gosh, it's really easy to aim this thing in low light and identify the no shoots from the shoots. And that shit worked on me. That was really well-placed marketing that really, really worked on me. And I didn't even realize that I was being marketed to at the time because I was like, oh, how cool of Crimson Trace to put a free laser on this stage. Doot-to-do.
Doot-to-do.
And then you were like, where'd all these grips come from?
Yeah, I'm not kidding. If you look in my fucking gun closet, there's like 5 guns with Crimson Trace grips on them.
If they were more comfortable on a Glock, I'd run them constantly.
It was funny. And the problem with the Glock one was that was like their worst. And I love Crimson Trace. The Glock one was like their worst model.
Yeah, it's so, no matter what variant you get, it so drastically changes the grip that it's and I want to shout out Crimson Trace has taken care of me over the years with occasional stuff that I've needed for articles and other things, and I think they do some really cool stuff. Just the main gun that I carry, the grip doesn't work. Otherwise, I would run one because free laser is free laser.
And if you're balls deep in revolver land like I am, Crimson Trace is it's the number one. It's the go-to. I talked about this earlier this week on my Facebook page at facebook.com/Caleb Shooting, where the grip shape that they present for these small guns, like your Taurus 856s and your LCRs and stuff like that, makes the gun easier to shoot And then you also get a free laser. I'm like, oh, it's a really good grip that makes me
It's
able to shoot the
comfy,
gun better.
and there's a red dot,
And it comes with a laser. Fantastic. So yeah, that was an example that worked on me. I'll let you guys decide who wants to go next of like good marketing that worked on you.
Oh man. Okay, so it wasn't a particular ad, it was a period of time for AR-15s. And it was when you felt terrible if your gun was direct impingement.
Oh God, yeah.
So there was this time period, I don't want to give it a hard date, but I do feel like it was 2009 to 2013, somewhere in that range, where if you
was
were
during
running
that era where General What's-His-Nuts was actively attacking the M4 for killing some dudes.
Yeah, there was some stuff like that. And it was really just sort of like piston gun hype time. And I can't put this on any particular company's doorstep. You know, I'd love to be able to say like, oh, HK did this. They didn't. HK just sort of did their own thing, and they had the 416, which you couldn't get at the time. Yeah. I remember like there was one 416 upper that made its way into a very famous gun shop down here in Georgia, and they had it behind the shelf, and they had a sign that said, "You cannot handle this. It is a $10,000 item. Do not talk to me about this item if you are not serious." I went in there, I saw it, I was like, "Oh, that's crazy. That's so cool." And the rumor is it was a personal upper of an SF guy who had gotten it, and he had sold it, and they sold it 3 weeks later. Somebody came in and took it. But this is where LWRCI came, and there were a bunch of other like retrofit kits to get a piston.
LWRCI's marketing definitely worked on me. I mean, I've got two of them, and I've got an old one. I've got an old one from the days where Andy was just starting to enter into the AR-15 market, and they were figuring out how to put controls on the other side of the gun. Like that's how.
Yeah, there was also like Remington had a piston gun. Adams Arms was kind of like your budget entry piston. I had one of those. I shot the crap out of it.
Do you remember when Smith white labeled the Adams Arms guns as the M&P 15 piston?
Yeah.
That was a weird time, wasn't it? Like everyone
and
was
the thing is, it's like there's really not a huge advantage to piston guns outside of like, I'm going to caveat this. It's not because you're in the water all the time. It's if you are in an environment where running a gun dry is actually like just simpler for you. A piston gun completely dry will run for about 3 magazines before it gets a little chunky. And then all it needs is a little bit of lube and it'll keep going. I kind of like that for like an older purpose that now has become a much dumber purpose, once called the truck gun.
So Pressburg was talking about that, where he was like, hey, you know, the 416 was great in the Middle East because when you're getting out of a helicopter with rotor wash and it's blowing fine particulate dust everywhere, the gun's going to keep working even if it's dry.
Right. Yeah, your odds of your gun working when you flip the switch and have to start pressing the trigger were higher with the piston gun, that it would keep cycling and would heat itself on the first mag. Because when we were in Africa running just M16A4s and older ones that had entered service earlier, these were pretty beat up guns. But if we kept them wiped and lightly lubed, we could get through about 2 mags with some of these guys. But as soon as the wind kicked up, they would die on the first mag, and it didn't matter if you had just cleaned that thing. You gave it 5 minutes with the wind up, enough had gotten in there that you could kill the gun on the first mag. You could still clear it, but the gun would go down in the first mag just because there's too much dirt in the air.
Yeah. So a lot of piston guns in the time period were like, it was a marketing campaign that I don't think any one person was in charge of. But once everybody kind of saw the desire for it, everybody got into it. And my first AR was actually a piston gun. I currently don't have a piston AR. and I just saw a couple for sale that I'm kind of like,
You're thinking about it again. The darkness is calling to you.
Well, I thought I was back comfortably on DIs, and then a decent deal on an LW popped through, and I instantly was like,
Yep, buy now.
Buy now.
So Keith, let's talk about talk about your what marketing worked on you, and then I'll talk about what might have been the most amazing piece of marketing ever in the history of the gun industry.
Oh, what marketing worked on me? I have to go back to the early handgun marketing in which 40, when I got into concealed carry originally, 40 was the round, 40 was the best. You always carried a 40. 9 was like, we make it 2, but
9 was for
then
little girls.
then you remember a time when 45 started to surge again just a little bit, and like the M&P 45 came out.
That was a really good gun, by the way.
Yes, the M&P 45 was so comfortable, and Smith & Wesson just quietly rode on the fact that that gun shot fantastic, and it was very comfortable. And I bought in immediately and ran like 3 M&P 45s in a row, and I loved them all. They were fantastic guns, and all of a sudden I was a 45 bro at like 23 years old.
I think everybody had a phase like that too, and it's funny because that was that 45 resurgence. That M&P 45 was directly responsible for Glock being like, all right, the Gen 3 21 SF isn't cool enough. We need to do a Gen 4 21, which they did, which was also a pretty fucking good gun. You know what was always interesting to me was that even the 40 cal M&P, because I had 2 of the long side 40 cal M&Ps. Why were the 45s and the 40s so much better than the 9s? Because the 9s wouldn't shoot in a group, but the 40s and the 45s would. And I'm sure some engineer out there has an actual answer for me that I'm not smart enough to understand. But before we move on to bad marketing, I want to talk about what, in my opinion, is the best example of unbelievably good marketing in the history of the gun industry, and that's the Magpul DVDs.
Without question.
How many?
Yeah.
And
you kicked an industry off.
Those didn't just sell Magpul parts, which they sold a lot of Magpul parts. Those also sold training classes and DVDs and Travis Haley's lip balm or whatever the hell he was, skincare line or whatever the hell it was. Like those are, I really don't think we'll ever see guerrilla marketing, because the best part was you had to pay to get them. You had to pay to be marketed to. It was brilliant. I mean, I don't think we'll ever see. And the best part about it, it wasn't even cynical. Like it wasn't like they were cynically like, let's make these marketing tapes and sell them to people like the Cold Steel guy did. They were, which we could talk about those in a minute. But the Magpul DVDs were, they were the best example of marketing, and you had to pay to get them. And I just can't, like that today.
I did.
That today blows my mind.
They're still good.
Yeah.
They're actually still fun to watch.
Yeah, they're still good. They're still fun to watch. I have watched Travis and Chris do 2-man drills on YouTube. They cut them so great, and they did I remember the handgun video when those M&Ps came out of their gun. Like that was still like the early days of the M&P, and I had never seen an M&P look cool
until then.
I remember that thing coming out of the holster and had the Surefire on it, the extended barrel. This was before we really ran a lot of optics on the gun. In fact, the weirdest part to me is watching dynamic handgun and there's no optic on the line.
Oh yeah. Well, because that came out in what, 2010?
2011.
It was still a few years before FN dropped the FNX 45 and kicked off that like optics can be on a duty gun theory. And for a while they were like the only one. They were like, aha, we did this to a 45, and everyone's like, that's neat. Should we do anything else? Nah, we're good.
Yeah, we're good. But yeah, I mean, absolutely phenomenal marketing, and the fact that we're still talking about them 12 years later. And to me, they've sort of occupied a place in the cultural zeitgeist that, like, so this actually is the Gunsight has modernized, right? If you go to Gunsight today, they're not going to teach you like elbow locked weaver anymore. They don't do that shit. But I used to say that if you went to Gunsight and you took a 250, and even if they taught you, fucked up weaver stance, you would still be a very capable and very well equipped to defend yourself. And the Magpul dynamic, like Art of the Dynamic Handgun, kind of fits into that niche of, if you watch this and you practice this stuff, you are going to be a more capable, competent shooter, assuming that you're starting from zero, than you would be if you hadn't, even if that's not the most modern stuff anymore.
Run that stuff.
Yeah.
Even if you're starting from casual and you start running what you see in each of those segments, in each of those DVDs, and you do it honestly, you run the drills the way they're supposed to, you're going to get better, and you're probably going to get better very quickly on that first arc. You're going to jump up into like, oh, like you can actually run your gun.
However, don't go around flipping your magazines, guys. That was the one.
No.
Just that no magazine.
Chamber check.
The magazine goes flying across the range, which obviously
I've talked to Magpul about that a couple of times. It was really funny because those Gen Mags were meant to solve a specific problem on the M16 M4s, which have a very specific TDP magazine well, and they didn't know at the time that the polymer would swell, especially in temperatures. So it would swell a little bit and the magazine would get stuck. And they're like, well, stuck magazine don't look cool, so just yeet these things out instead of the much simpler version, which works on guns that don't have drop-free magazines of, well, if you pull it out and then put the new one in, that too work.
Problem
Instead,
solved.
they were like, nah.
So I had a buddy who was very Gucci. Like, there's always one friend that makes you feel poor, and all he ran were E-mags. And that was, we got a seal on the line. But I always thought like the sterile E-mag look, because it doesn't have any of the traditional like.
I've got a couple of them, and I bought them just for that like very, very svelte, very slick look. I also bought them to show my company at the time that, like, look, we have magazines that can run in our M27s. You don't have to be grumpy bastards about this. We just have to check mags before we put them in the gun, which is something we should be doing anyway because we're fucking NCOs and we should be checking our guys' kit. They were like, no P-mags. And then like 2 years later, they're like, only P-mags.
So pivoting off of how great those Magpul DVDs were, let's talk about the other end of that spectrum, which is I'm going to, as a very specific example, and I am not calling out their products here. I think they actually make some pretty fine products, but I'm not a knife guy, so knife guys don't at me, or do, I don't care. Cold Steel, the iron proof videos and the cold proof videos where you would get where you'd get like slightly doughy bald men slashing up ham hocks and things like that with their products. So bad. So bad. I never watched one of those and was like, oh yeah, I need me a Cold Steel katana now because he cut through like half a ham with it. Now, if I was a prohibited person, maybe, but I don't know. Now, I will say we could be bagging on these, and I could be bagging on these specifically because I don't know who they're for, because I am not a blade boy. But Jack is slow. If you're listening to this, Jack just rolled out of the shot, and I feel like he is about to come back with some absurdity of a knife.
It could happen. I've seen it happen previously.
And for the record, Jack is also dressed. If you're just listening to this, Jack is also dressed like a blade boy right now. He is wearing
I want to show you
sleeveless zip-up hoodie that you cut the sleeves off of.
I want to show you something.
Okay.
And I want you to understand.
Oh, you have it.
This is the Cold Steel high performance knives 6-disc set, never unarmed.
6 discs?
How
long is that?
Hold on 1 second. I can only do this if I blur the background. You can actually see this. This is without question the most unhinged thing I've ever seen in my entire life. I've had access to the internet since 2001. Nothing has been unseen by me. This haunts my dreams to the point that I hunted it down on DVD in 2020. And it's about 6.5 hours long. I've never made it through the whole thing.
Look, how could you?
But I promise you that there's nothing you can expect that, like, every segment is just crazy, and you can tell that this was all done in one take. There is no, like, let's do that one again, let's try that again. No, the mistakes are in there, the misses are in there. They're never acknowledged, but it happens.
Is that the one that has Lynn shooting the ground with the Glock 20?
Yes,
it's in there. It's in there.
Everything. There are a couple of moments that appear as if he is firing at employees.
He might be.
Right, like I can't. So there's a thing where, like, they're talking about ripping fire.
Oh my God, yes.
And the guy goes running into a plywood structure. The guy is acting like a bad guy. He goes running into the plywood structure, and then seconds later, there's no clear cut to me. Lynn Thompson drives his pistol out and begins firing through the wall at about chest height, just ripping fire. You know, like, and you're like, that guy okay? They clearly cut, right? And you're like, I don't think.
I don't know.
Did they cut
I
it?
really think that guy ran in there and then was told to lay down so the bullets wouldn't hit him. I can't prove that.
But it do feel that way.
If I can figure out a way to do this, what I would like to do at some point. Do you guys watch Red Letter Media?
Every now and then.
Yes.
I think we should do a review of this.
Oh man.
Yes.
We can't do all 6 hours.
There are probably some choicer parts of this that I think are like, watch this, watch this, watch this. Yeah.
You know what? Oh man, yeah, it's a shame. It is a genuine shame that that's not on like Prime or something like that, because we could do a Prime watch party and stream it.
Look at this! Look at this! Look how many. These are DVDs. These are physical DVDs.
And you know what's crazy? If you've never done this, DVDs actually cost a lot of money to like imprint. They're not cheap to make.
Right.
That's why you have to do them in freaking super bulk in order to make it cost effective.
And you know that this was a vanity project. Like, this
it very much is. It's clearly like he did his knife stuff for so long, and no one really challenged him. Nobody was like, "Dude, you cutting up pigs is kind of weird." That he decided to do this. Now, I will tell you, there is a moment in this video where I suddenly realized crazy doesn't mean not brave.
Yeah.
Lynn Thompson has video in this of him hunting Cape buffalo as the capes turn and charge on him.
Yeah. No, yeah. Sometimes crazy does mean brave, as a matter of fact. Like,
and it's not like safe what he's doing. He is literally chasing them into the bush with a gun guide who's holding his reload.
Yeah.
And he just do, and he manages to kill a few, and I'm like, oh man.
This is not a smart idea. And it's crazy.
That is one of the angriest animals on the planet, and no man or woman who's like, yeah, I'll take that on, is like, nope, that's good for you.
I mean,
not on my bucket list.
It is on my bucket list. That I would love to try that. There's some, like, I have some like dumb hunting ideas, like things that I would really like to try. Then Cape Buffalo is definitely on that list. So moving past the absolutely and for the record, guys, there are clips from that DVD. Keith has got one. Give me yours, Keith. What you got?
Oh, the moving past that just absolute batshit insane marketing to a to another classic that's much more recent in our memory, is to good old Florida man themselves, the Kel-Tec company.
Oh, yes, I'm so glad.
And P-Dude.
How did Piss Mustache make its way out of a room? So if you don't know what we're talking about.
What line of substances were consumed that you're like, you know what the people need? Some really weird, strange Bear Grylls-ian freaking. We're gonna put pee in a mustache and we're gonna photograph that. It'll be frozen.
It was an ad for what with RFB, I think, one of their rifles.
Yeah,
and
it was one of, or it was that I think it was that like slicked down no feature bullpup thing that they did. But the weirdest part about it is a lot of their printed media didn't feature the gun at all. It was just the mustache.
So guys, if you type in Kel-Tec P mustache into Google image searches, you will get this ad. It is the first result. And it is a dude who has got, like, you know, when you go outside and it's really super cold and you get some moisture on your face, it freezes to your face. So the guy has frozen moisture above his face, and the tagline, and I'm not shitting you, is for those who drink their own urine. With the implication being that the moisture came from the pee.
A bottle of
now,
pee.
at the time, Bear's Grill was very popular, and Bear Grylls has drunk his urine on a number of occasions for television.
Remember the time he drank his urine out of a snake? Like he killed a snake. I mean, he didn't actually kill a snake, and that wasn't actually his urine that we were drinking, because as it turns out, he was a phony. But yeah, I remember that. That was a weird one. So anyway, yes, this ad was very much trying to tap into the, you know, Bear Grylls, Survivor Man sort of zeitgeist that was popular at the time. But I just, how, like, a room full of grown-ups looked at this and they all said, yes, let's print that shit.
So the story I've been told is that it was not intentional, that this was done up as a fake ad among the marketing department as a joke, and the packet with the joke ad got picked up, taken to the publisher, and run.
I don't believe that for a fucking second.
They brought it to SHOT Show hard. It was on the walls.
By that point, it was already out, and their options were lean in or lean out, and they chose lean in. That is the story I've been given.
They are Florida men, so I respect that.
I don't know the full truth of the matter. Is I think no one will ever know. That was a series of bizarre decisions that were made.
But that wasn't the only bizarre Kel-Tec ad. That's the thing. Like,
it is among the most bizarre, because I remember seeing that ad, and then I remember wandering by like CAA or something like that, and they had a weird ad set going too. It wasn't pee and mustaches, but it was like a bunch of dudes dressed in medieval armor and holding cheaply done up AKs with like Capco furniture on it.
Oh, do you remember when the American Kalashnikov people very clearly hired EAA's marketing firm, and they had like sexy laser cowboy with an AK, you know, as one of the things on the SHOT Show booth?
Yep.
Also, I never thought I would ever say the word sexy laser cowboy, so this is a real fucking landmark day for me, guys.
Sexy laser cowboy. I'm gonna pivot again, and one of the ones that got me, the marketing that got me at the time, and then in hindsight was just like was some of the original Bushmaster ACR marketing, where every time you clicked it, you ended up on the website, and it was just hard metal guitar riffs, and just as you scrolled through it down, like, if you own the ACR, you are the coolest motherfucker ever. By the way,
was from Bushmaster's Limp Bizkit phase,
guys, and it's not gonna go well.
So there's a period, like there are a number of periods of like how ARs are marketed. I think the height is the Magpul era, where anything they made was gold. It's still gold. What am I talking about?
Yeah.
I enjoyed their kind of marketing. I wish that there was a way to go back to it, but they appear to have just sort of considered that not really worth it. I kind of like the core stuff they did.
Mhm.
I loathe weekend warrior marketing for AR-15s. And what I mean by that is, like, if you have a 9-to-5 job, that's okay. So do I. Your gun does not make you a warrior any more than your khakis make you an accountant. And the idea of, like, you and your rifle versus the horde of whatever nebulous group you dislike this week, I just don't like it. I don't like zombie stuff either. I thought that was a really weird
Who was
period.
it? There was one recently that I just shook my head at. I think it was a still, and it was like this nebulous horde in front of, I think it was a police officer. And he's like standing there alone with a shield and a baton. And I'm just like, guys.
Yeah, I
No.
don't know. Yeah, that's
You know what
weird.
an equally terrible one was? Do you guys remember the early ads for the FN-57 pistol? And it was this dude
Oh,
who's, like,
yeah.
protecting his family, and he's wearing like pajamas that have been ironed so that there's creases in the sleeves and everything.
Get behind me. All I have is this 22 Magnum.
I know the guy who, fun fact, that Photoshop on that ad, I know the guy who did that. Like, he was the guy who Photoshopped it out. It's like, get behind me. All I have is this crappy 22 mag. It's so good.
I don't necessarily hate the 5.7
sleeves. Come on.
Yeah, that's a lot of weirdness. Also, there's a light switch behind you, my bro. Just turn that on.
Yeah,
like,
flick that guy on.
I got this. That was a big one.
That's, as an aside, that's one of the weirdest arguments that I still constantly run into about people putting lights on guns. It's like, you'll give it, yeah, there's no other way that you're going to see what's going on in your house. And I'm like, there's this thing on the wall that provides you that ability every day.
Well, I mean, the light on the gun projects light into areas that I haven't walked into to turn the lights on yet.
Yeah,
which is
so,
nice.
like,
That's a nice feature.
It has a function.
It
but
does.
The one that gets me is I don't want to give my position away.
That one gets me every single time. Like, my brother in Christ, you're in a house making a bunch of noise, and it's like your house. You're probably going like, hello?
Bro.
Who the fuck's in my house?
Right, like, my first words are going to be, just leave now, please.
Just get out. Nothing in this house is worth getting killed over.
Right, you're in the living room. You're going to take a $300 TV. Leave. If you're out of here by the time I get to the living room, it's no harm, no foul to me.
Honestly, like, good luck unhooking my TV, man. That's just plugged into so much different stuff. You think you're going to get that thing unhooked or ripped out of the wall before I get out there with a shotgun?
If they've made their way, if they've made their way to my bedroom, well, now what they have to contend with is a 6'8" naked, angry gorilla, and the gun's no longer the big problem.
Nope.
We're not going to say what the problem is, guys. Use your imagination. All right. So I'm going to wrap this up because we're just about we're done. We had a good episode this week. I'm going to wrap this up with what is my all-time favorite gun industry marketing clapback, and we don't do this anymore in the industry, and I think we need to bring it back. So a very long time ago, when many of our listeners either didn't exist or were small children, when I was a small child, Ruger ran a magazine ad talking about how the GP100 was better than the 686 because it was thicker and stronger.
Yes! Oh my God, I remember this.
Claps back with an ad that says there's no question that thicker is better when it comes to burgers and shakes, but what does it have to do with revolvers? And for this clapback, they actually took Ruger GP100 grips and they made a hamburger in the shape of a GP100. It, according to friends that I know who knew people that were involved in that, it took them hours to get this right because they couldn't get the burger to hold together in the right shape. They couldn't get it charred right. It was a nightmare to do this. And they put days of man hours into creating an ad specifically to clap back and troll Ruger. And I think we need to bring a little bit of that energy back.
And you know what? That's a really good clapback. Like,
oh yeah,
clever. It was well thought out, and it doesn't it doesn't take the cheap path of calling Ruger wrong. It just questions why they would bring this up and then gives you a very funny image with it. It doesn't say like Ruger GP100 suck it. It doesn't.
Yeah, it's very clever. It's brilliant, and it is endured, at least in my opinion, as one of the best examples of clever gun industry advertising, because they're just like, I mean, and I also like it because it's petty, and I enjoy a certain amount of pettiness like in my life. So that is it for this week's episode, guys. What we would love is for you to tell us about your favorite instances of firearms industry marketing, or even adjacent marketing like knives and stuff like that. Let us know your favorite ones. Let us know the craziest ones. Let us know ones that really made you scratch your head. And we can be creative. We don't need to point out that, like, all of Alien Gear's advertising is just horrendously bad. We all know that. All right. So be a little bit more creative than that. But that's it for this week, guys. Thank you for liking, sharing, subscribing, commenting, and all of those fun things that you do that keep the show going. We will be back next week.